And what about her suggestion that her leadership stint is akin to that of Donald Trump in his second term? I mean, come on. I think we can all see, can't we, that it's not quite going the way that they'd hoped for. And I'm not sure if the honourable gentleman is a card player or not, but I'm sure he can agree with me. They're not really holding the trump card. It's more of a busted flush.
This week also marks the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We wish, I know, the Prime Minister every success in his meetings at the White House today. As you will know, Mr. Speaker, the government has come in for some fairly punishing criticism from me at the dispatch box in recent months, and rightly so. It came to power loudly advertising its virtue and careful planning. But instead, as the House will know, we have seen a series of entirely avoidable resignations, blunders and mishaps. The government has talked about growth, but its decisions have managed to reduce the Bank of England's forecast from 2% to 0.75% growth for this year. Little wonder, that is, when one considers the £25 billion increase in national insurance contributions and the imposition of an employment rights bill with an upfront cost estimated at £5 billion, among much else. Most bizarre of all has been the lack of foresight and financial planning. The Chancellor talked grandly in her May's lecture last year about securonomics, whatever that is, and the importance of economic security. But as many commentators have noticed, her fiscal rules and other decisions have left her very little room for manoeuvre. After all, it was obvious in the autumn that there could be tariffs on trade, with, as ministers have since acknowledged, also an inevitable rise in defence spending. It's almost as though Labour never imagined, or perhaps never wanted to believe, that President Trump would be re-elected. As a result, the government may be forced to have a mini-budget next month and then a spending review which has been so delayed that the government will have gone a full year from its election without having any settled spending plans. Meanwhile, it prefers to import oil and gas from abroad rather than use less expensive domestic energy supplies. Forget securonomics. This is a recipe for insecurity as well as increasing carbon emissions. However, it is important to give credit where credit's due, Mr. Speaker. I reported in December that genuine signs of reality were starting to break through in the government's so-called plan for change. The Prime Minister said there, in 2010, the incoming government inherited public finances in desperate need of repair. He said that the UK needed a profound cultural shift away from a declinist mentality which has become comfortable with failure. And finally, and most notably, he said, we cannot tax our way to prosperity or spend our way to better public services. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was right on all 3 counts, and he is right now to increase defence spending. It is not untrue to say that he is visibly becoming more conservative before our eyes. Unfortunately, of course, the real numbers in the defence statement were in fact half what he claimed, as the Institute for Fiscal Studies quickly made clear. And the statement was insulting in other ways to this House, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to say. It appears to have been leaked to the media, who ran the headline before the Prime Minister had even stood up. Perish the thought that it was deliberately redacted so that MPs would be kept in the dark and could not hold the government to account. The Prime Minister has emphasised all the planning that was involved in this decision. But even so, he was repeatedly unable to answer the simple yes or no question whether funding for the Chagos Islands deal was included in this total. And what is worse, in his statement, he tried to aggregate the intelligence services budget in with the defence budget. That is grossly misleading, because these budgets are and have long been kept separate. And what is worse still, the Prime Minister's claim that the combination of the 2 budgets would be 2.6% of GDP seems to imply a cut, not a rise, in the budget for the intelligence services, which currently stands at over 0.15%. This cannot be correct. Even if the leader cannot address this question now, I'd be grateful if she could write to me with the details in order to answer it for the record and for the benefit of this House.
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I also welcome the retirement of Dawn from the tea room and wish her well. And can I also start by remarking on what an excellent couple of 10-minute rule bills we've had this week. First of all, from the honourable gentleman, the shadow leader, who brought forward a very important bill on cleaning up the River Wye, which I know is of real importance to his constituents, but also a 10-minute rule bill from my brilliant PPS, the member for West Bromwich, who introduced a bill to crack down on ghost car number plates, a very important issue. So they're in good company with each other this week, Mr. Speaker. But as the Prime Minister attends a very important meeting with President Trump's today, I know that he has the support of the whole House behind him in the national interest. The peace and security we have enjoyed in recent generations has shifted significantly in the last few years, not least because of Russian aggression and their illegal invasion of Ukraine. The Prime Minister has shown determined leadership on the world stage to ensure that our national security is protected in the long term. The whole House has also come together once again this week to show our unity and strength in supporting Ukraine. 3 years since Russia's full-scale illegal invasion of Ukraine, we stand in solidarity. We support their bravery, their people, their democratically elected president, and we stand firm for their sovereignty and their lasting security, free from threats from Russia. The cross-party display, unity on display this week, and I know will be on display again this afternoon, shows this House at its best and really gives the Prime Minister great strength in his negotiations and discussions. And as the honourable gentleman said, the Prime Minister also this week announced to Parliament first that in order to respond to the changing and growing threats that we face, defence spending will increase to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 and grow to 3% in the next Parliament. This marks the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, going further than commitments we made in our manifesto. And it's not just vital for our own capabilities, but for maintaining peace and security beyond our shores. Other European countries must now also step up at this crucial juncture. And I was actually really pleased to see that the announcement to 2.5 was universally welcomed across this House. He yet again raises the government's economic record, but let's have a look at that record, shall we, once again. Interest rates are down 3 times in a row, mortgage rates are also going down, wages are going up, and from the 1st of April, the lowest paid will receive a big pay rise. He might not be interested in pay and workers' dignity and security, but this party is, and we're not ashamed to say so. And he talks about energy prices, and he will know that this country, under his government, was uniquely and specifically exposed to global energy markets. And the only way for us to get lower bills in the long term, sustainable lower bills, is to make sure that we've got clean energy generated in this country. And that's what this government is embarking on doing. And he wants to, I think, unfortunately, open up a difference on defence spending, but I just would gently remind him that the last time the government spent 2.5% on defence spending was under the last Labour government. His government made promise after promise on the never, never. It never happened, and it wasn't a credible plan. So I would just gently remind him of that. But look, Mr. Speaker, it's another week of business questions and another week that the shadow leader fails to say anything supportive about his own leader. I keep giving him ample opportunity to do so at these sessions each week. I thought he might want to highlight some of the recent speeches and interventions she's made recently, given that they've had so little coverage. She advised us to stop hiding behind vapid statements. I'm not sure that it's us making vapid statements, Mr. Speaker. I think it might be herself. But was he not taken with her claim that only, and I quote, the Conservatives are the guardians of Western civilization? I know he takes his history very seriously, so what does he make of that claim? And did he not want to take the opportunity today, Mr. Speaker, to restate her claim that the Prime Minister's big moves this week were all down to a letter he received from the Leader of the Opposition? Or does he realise, like the rest of us, that this is obviously absurd? And what about her suggestion that her leadership stint is akin to that of Donald Trump in his second term. I mean, come on. I think we can all see, can't we, that it's not quite going the way that they'd hoped for. And I'm not sure if the honourable gentleman is a card player or not, but I'm sure he can agree with me. They're not really holding the trump card. It's more of a busted flush.